Hello, music is over. I guess it's time for us three. I'm really excited to have you guys. We have quite the chill session ahead of us. Before we do dive in, everyone should know this is about a hackathon project that won a hackathon bounty and then actually also got a grant from the Oasis Foundation and now is expanding on this hackathon project into a proper DApp. And that's something that we want to enable to lots of other projects as well. Currently, we do have a hackathon ongoing. It's the Privacy for Web3 hackathon with $130,000 in prizes that we are co-hosting with partners like Ocean Protocol. And it's almost finished. It was supposed to be done, I think, end of tomorrow, but we got tons of requests from hackers. So a bit of news here. The deadline is extended until end of Sunday. So anyone that's still hacking, you do have a bit of extra time. We did adjust. We were not mad to extend the timeline that you were not finished. We really just want to see some finalized products. So quite excited to start judging this before DEF CON. Okay, but to you guys, or almost to the community, we do have a questionnaire open, or whatever channel you're using, Twitter, X, YouTube, just drop some questions. I will try to pick them up to ask Fedor and Merlin questions. So let's get to it. How are you guys doing?
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I'm doing great.
Tell us a bit. What's your background? Doesn't matter who starts. I just want to get to know you guys a bit better, introduce you to the ecosystem, to the community.
Okay, I'll quickly start. My name is Merlin. I'm an electromechanical engineering student and a freelance software developer working for a startup right now, and also obviously working on our project BoT.
You're muted.
Sorry. I'm Fyodor. I'm a computer science student in Leuven, but I also enjoy Web3 and developing stuff for Web3, going to hackathons and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, we met in April in Amsterdam during the ETH hackathon. I assume this was not the first hackathon. What's your experience with hackathons, specifically crypto ones? But feel free to talk also about more traditional ones.
Yeah, so my background is like, as I said, electromechanical engineer. So I was used to hackathons, but the more traditional ones, the more technical ones with trains and with satellite imagery and whatever. But then Fyodor invited me to a hackathon for Web3, which introduced me to the concept. But he had way more experience with hackathons like that. So he can tell a bit about that maybe.
Honestly, it was my third hackathon, so I also wasn't so experienced. But yeah, I approximately knew what to expect. That we should be building some apps that should be useful for people, and that's what we try to accomplish.
So what's the difference between more traditional hackathons and these crypto ones?
Well, these ones were definitely more bigger than the ones I've gone to before. Well, I say more traditional ones, but the hackathons that I attended were actually hackathons started obviously as a thing for like development, and the ones I went to were more technical. So the main difference there is that you work out something more conceptual, because you can't really. I can't build a train in 32 hours, but you can build software in 32 hours. So that was the biggest difference, that you actually have something to show at the end instead of only a presentation.
What about you, Fyodor?
Yeah, it's definitely bigger, and you can accomplish a lot in less time, because to build on crypto is the same. Like you don't. It's not the same as building a rocket or a train. You can build some infrastructure that might have really a lot of impact in a matter of hours, and that's amazing that you can do stuff in it.
But I do assume it's a bit more complex because you get kind of familiar with new chains, new tools in this chain, especially something like Oasis. It is an EVM one, but suddenly you have on-chain privacy. So I would assume that this is the biggest difference, to kind of get familiar with new tool sets, new languages.
That isn't all. That is also a very great thing, because that way we learn a lot of new stuff. Yeah.
Right. Are you still in contact with some of the other hackers from ETH?
Yeah, I think the guy who made 0x2FA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's a really cool project. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, there were a couple really impressive ones. And it would be great, I mean, to facilitate more of this networking. But okay, then lead us a bit through your experience at ETH. You come there, I assume you've never heard of Oasis before. So how does it go? Because you didn't have to build on Oasis on Sapphire. Like I remember there were quite a few cool projects that were offering bounties. So why did you decide to use Sapphire?
So first of all, we wanted to build something that was useful to people. And when I was packing my bags for the hackathon, I was just going through all of my closets and I found a Raspberry Pi. And I was like, it's a hackathon. Why not, right? So I packed it with me. And then we had the realization that putting IoT device on the blockchain would be a fun and interesting concept to explore. And then we also saw that Oasis offered a confidential EVM, which is perfect because then the provider of the data of the IoT source can choose who sees their data and when. This wouldn't be possible with a more traditional EVM where everybody can see everything.
What about you, Fido? Did you know Oasis and Sapphire?
Oh, no. I found out about Oasis at the hackathon, and indeed, what attracted us is that you could have private data on the blockchain. So that's what got our attention. And then we explored and we realized that Oasis would be ideal for our use case, for key management and for management of data, which is private, while still being a blockchain, so you can have monetary transactions and stuff like that. And we decided to build on Oasis then. Yeah.
And how did you guys then start out? Because I mean, I assume you guys had some familiarity with Solidity, so you didn't have to start from scratch there, even though we do have a Rust-based rollup as well. But how does one start to build on Sapphire?
Yeah, we had to go through the documentation, but luckily there was a lot of documentation and examples on GitHub that was especially useful. Examples of other apps built on Oasis that you can just clone and then go through the code and understand how things work. Yeah, docs on GitHub.
Nice. Same approach for you, Melin?
Yeah, at the start we divided the work. So as I said, this was my first Web3 experience actually ever, except for like owning a bit of Ethereum, but that doesn't count. So we divided the work. I tried to understand as much as possible, but Fyodor did the main work with the contracts, and I focused on the sensor on our Raspberry Pi that we had with us, which actually wasn't not powerful, but it was a very small one without an operating system. So we ended up taking I ended up taking the tram all across Amsterdam to get a new one. So that was my main task, and then I focused on developing the sensor script.
Okay. And the docs were enough? I mean, I assume lots of our engineers will now be very happy to hear this because they keep constantly reiterating on the docs to make it as easy as possible for new developers to start on our chain. And of course, I mean, that's the beauty of open source code. Everyone can check like most of the dApps that are built on our chain and kind of fork it, see how do they do the key management, etc. So was there anything still missing? And be honest.
Yeah, sometimes I wish that there was more documentation. But then, like, it wasn't a problem if you go through the examples on GitHub. Then, when you have an example of a working thing, it's much easier to understand how the whole structure works. And, like, in my opinion, examples are more useful than pure documentation, you know. But, I mean, you can say the same about any documentation. Like when you are getting to know how an API or a blockchain works, then of course you would prefer more information than less. But yeah, it's definitely sufficient.
it's a difficult balance to keep because you don't want to overload them with tons of documentation. You want to have this thread where it's very easy to follow along and just start with something rather quickly. Okay, but good to know. I mean, this is kind of a shout out to everyone building on our chain. Like whenever there's feedback, feel free to very honestly give it to us because that's the only way we can improve. I remember our developers were super happy to talk to all the hackers, including you guys at the event in Amsterdam, because we got so much like real feedback from people utilizing the stack, people that had no idea how this works before. So they start from scratch and seeing how they kind of work through the docs. That was great insights for us, and we changed actually quite a bit upon this. So I assume now it should be way easier, hopefully for hackers. But we do have some new tools like Ruffle, and I think you guys are also a bit familiar with this, that brings some new complexity. It's some new docs again. So there will always be some challenges for hackers, but that's why we love hackathons, because it's so much real feedback that we get and can quickly kind of build upon. Okay. Tell me, I assume it sounds like Merlin, you had the idea already. I mean, you brought the Raspberry Pi, you wanted to build something with like real applications. How did you guys decide on the idea? Were you easily convinced, Fedor?
I have to say that Fedor was actually the one to come up with the
never
final
mind.
idea. Yeah, it was just an accident that I had, not an accident, but I thought it would be fun that I had it with me, and he connected the dots and came up with the final idea. And I was easily convinced because that meant, for me as a newcomer, that I could join in with the ecosystem. There was a big part of the problem that I could understand and could tackle myself, so I was easily on board.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. And where did the idea then come from, Fedor?
Yeah, just what we had to work with. We had a Raspberry Pi, and I like I know. Yeah, I know that Merlin does a lot of IoT programming, and I also did an IoT internship. So I thought, yeah, IoT, and then we realized that there is a problem of that IoT could benefit a lot from the blockchain, and yeah, so that's how we came up with the idea.
It actually took some time. We were quite deep into the hackathon before we came up with our final idea that we would work out. So it was tense, but it was nice.
Did you sleep at the venue?
The first night we went to sleep that late that there weren't any beds left, so we went. The staff gave us like one chair in the staff room, and then the second night I went to sleep in a bed for 3 hours, and Fielder didn't.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It was very fun.
Yeah, that's how I remember everything looking like the next morning, because we were the fancy ones. We were sleeping in a hotel, but then coming rather early to support everyone again. And yeah, it looked crazy sometimes. But this connection of IoT and blockchain, you're not the first ones, of course. It's like there's even like really massive projects like Helium. Now, of course, we even have stuff like GPU providers, which is also deep in a sense. What, in your opinion, makes this connection of these two worlds so great? Why does IoT benefit from on-chain?
Why? Do you have an answer?
Yeah, decentralization. Like the blockchain offers an infrastructure, an already existing infrastructure, that also guarantees decentralization. And it's very useful to, especially for subscriptions and stuff like that, and subscriptions to data. You know, you have decentralized access to data, so it's resistant to being taken down. It's there forever on the blockchain, and you also have an infrastructure that allows to subscribe to things. So you can build infrastructures for the IoT on the blockchain.
Okay, then let's dive a bit deeper into BoT, blockchain of things. What is it? How does it work?
So the main idea is that there are providers and consumers. On one hand, providers who build their own IoT devices can implement code snippets at the end of their structures of their programs where they save the data, they can also push it to the blockchain, push it to decentralized storage, and that way, all of these IoT devices that exist and that are on the blockchain become a marketplace on our dApp. And there the consumers can select one, they can see what type of data they provide, and then they can select sensors to subscribe to. So that is the main idea. We have consumers and providers of data.
Yeah.
But you did focus on specific data initially, but it sounds like it could be a very general platform that connects anyone with any kind of data source from, I assume, different IoT sensors to this marketplace kind of system.
Yes. So it is made this way that it can be used for, yeah. Currently, we just use JSON structured data, so you can put anything in that. So we even have like, not really, yeah, we have a generic source just to test our things, which is not even an IoT sensor. It's just a script that provides data, so that would even work as well. But the goal is, of course, to have a network of useful data. And on the hackathon itself, we focused on temperature and humidity data, if I'm correct, because that's just a cheap DHT22 sensor that you can buy everywhere. So that's the one we used.
Okay, but what's your idea? What do you imagine it for? I mean, you keep also saying like you really want some real world impact. So I assume there is some data that is very valuable and where users should rather easily have the capacity or capability to provide this data stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can train artificial intelligences on data. That's like the oil of the age we live in. That's very valuable. So yeah, the idea is to build a platform where everybody can contribute data and earn from it. And then this data can later be used to train the AI models that will have a direct positive impact.
And the type of data is really up to the market.
Absolutely.
If there's a certain demand for a certain type of data, people will start installing their sensors to capture that type of data. We hope.
So what do you currently see in the market? I know actually a project out of Munich, they have also a deepened system for noise. They really want to have like an estimate on how noisy which part of the city is. And that's some data stream that users can provide. And I thought it was actually pretty interesting. Again, let's see who the consumer of this data is. But as you say, AI models want to be closer to the real world. Like lots of projects, like for example, Ocean Protocol, are building these world-to-world models. So they really need access to these data streams if it's high-quality data. So what kind of other data streams do you see out there?
I've seen examples of things in my city where the city, and I think the whole municipality has a program where just private people can install CO2 and other other emission sensors in their street, in their yard, and that way you can have a whole map of where's the best places to breed are. That was one example. Another example I saw was for a study from the university that I'm at, and they put, like you said, noise sensors in a big part of the city, especially in the student neighborhood, as a test. So it's, I think, really projects like that. And if that data then could be not open but accessible by anyone who wants to buy it, I think that would be useful.
So me as a user, I do actually have a Raspberry Pi at home. What kind of sensors could I already connect to it that would provide some value to someone?
That depends on who wants what kind of data. Currently, I think it's harder to list a sensor that doesn't exist for a Raspberry Pi in some way. You can measure almost anything with them. Well, if you don't go into too deep detail. So anything you can measure, you can put on there. And then you can put your sensor on the market. And if nobody's interested, yeah, that's something that happens. But it could be that you measure something really interesting to some people, and then people will try to access your data. So it's really dependent on the market.
Okay, then let's try to make this tangible for everyone that's also non-technical. So I have a Raspberry Pi at home. I add a couple of sensors for noise, CO2, doesn't matter, maybe even a light sensor to see how gray the sky is, maybe even measure smog with it or something. How does the data from this IoT device, this Raspberry Pi, then go, I don't know, somewhere decentralized storage? Where is the blockchain in between? What happens?
So the first step from a not blockchain technical user, because you have to be a bit technical, you're working with a Raspberry Pi, would be to just build your sensor as you would before, is to write your code, write your loops that measures everything. And then the point is, our goal is to provide a clear overview where you can select your technologies. So either you're working with Arduino files or with Python or with whatever, you can select your technology and it will show code snippets. And we will try to make it look as easy as possible by abstracting away all the blockchain things behind putting it in a library. You will have to pass in wallets and long strings like that, but that's the same as for the user. It will look the same as putting an API key somewhere. So we will try to make it as easy as possible. And from that point, it will start. Oh, yeah, one prerequisite is that you need to have an internet connection, obviously.
Sure.
You could do that with Helium while we're at it. But yeah, that's where the blockchain part starts. And I think Schilder can talk more about that point on.
Yeah, so the device, it generates data, the readings from the environment. And this data is then encrypted and published to IPFS. But by using IPNS, we have like a live stream link for this data. But all the data that's generated is always encrypted with a key. We actually use the blockchain not for the storage of data, but for access management. So who is subscribed and who can have the key to the data, information like that. And obviously the subscriptions themselves, because people pay in rows or anything else, and they get a subscription to the sensor. And we use Oasis randomness to generate the keys. And we heavily rely on the privacy layer for the encryption of the keys, that you can actually have information in the contract that will not be visible to everybody. On Ethereum, you cannot have that, for example. Yeah.
And from a user perspective that has the device, I do still need to have a wallet to create this account, to register my device, and then actually accept payments, etc. Or are you abstracting this away in a way?
Both options are available. Like the wallet. I mean, now we are abstracting it away in the sense that the key of the wallet is basically the API key that you use for receiving the funds and publishing the data. But I guess it could go both ways. It could be abstracted away even more, or it can be made more raw, so to say.
Yeah, I'm asking because we had a session earlier this week with Apelon that provide very nice UX for developers to abstract away wallet logins, where you can do this with passkeys, and this passkey actually kind of is the ownership of the private key, and with this you can sign messages and utilize it a lot, because your system is very interesting for these people that are familiar with IoT, but they might not be familiar with crypto. So kind of just giving them the benefits of crypto without having to explain them the wallets, that would already be a great UX. But I mean, as you say, it's definitely an option that you guys can implement.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how far did you get with this system during the hackathon? You said you started rather late, but I remember you showed some.
Yeah, we went up to stage with a working sensor.
Yes, with thousands of messages, I think I remember.
Yeah, to prove, yeah, we had it running. The moment we could actively push data to our system, we started with it. And then the 5 minutes before that we had to go on to stage, I was holding the Raspberry Pi and blowing on it to make it hotter and more humid, so that once we showed our presentation, you could see a spike. And it actually worked. I think it just worked.
Yes.
So in the end, we got a working basic proof of concept. So that was nice.
Were you happy with this? Did you expect to get a BoT?
Expect? Well, it's a hackathon. A lot of things can happen. So we were definitely happy that we had something to actually show. It was quite funny as well. We were with the sensor dangling there. So we were quite happy.
Yeah.
I mean, we were definitely happy to see it. It was the only kind of deepen IoT project. No one was even thinking about utilizing Raspberry Pis, but of course, everyone can. So for us, it was very exciting. We actually do not have a deepen project that's properly built on Sapphire that actually utilizes the on-chain privacy. And speaking of, before we go more towards the grant side of things, why does it really need on-chain privacy? What does this unlock for a project like you, but in theory could also do the same for Helium?
The fact that you can obscure the data behind the encryption enables a payment system for it. And this payment system can incentivize people to build more sensors. So it's really the incentive that people will build sensors because they can get a reward for it. Helium, for example, wouldn't be this big. They wouldn't have their routers everywhere if it wasn't for the people getting paid. It is really incentive.
I mean, everything in crypto is incentive. No one would be here if there wouldn't be an incentive. Bitcoin wouldn't work. Ethereum wouldn't work if there weren't some rewards. But the data is already encrypted and it is stored on IPFS. So where do you need the on-chain encryption or the on-chain privacy?
For access management, for encrypting the keys to the data. So we don't. There is not a lot of data on the blockchain itself, but it's the data that allows access to the data on IPFS, right?
Yeah, the keys are stored in the contract, so you
Exactly,
shouldn't
yeah.
be able to read the keys because then you can access the data. So that's
So
one
it's
part.
it's a decentralized infrastructure for accessing the data without having to keep the data itself on the chain, which would be extremely expensive. Yeah.
That's the still fascinating part to lots of developers when I talk to them and tell them you have private smart contracts. You can store private keys to wallets there. You can store whatever you want. That's how someone can own Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain from a smart contract on Sapphire, because you actually can store the private key there and with this sign messages, etc. So still, this is super fascinating to lots of people. Okay. Then how does it go from there? You submit, I remember your presentation with lots of wallet pop-ups. Then you actually the bounty. You receive the bounty. I think you guys came on stage 2. How does it go from there?
First of all, happiness. It was really surprising. Also, that's a big thing about the hackathons that I see in my network and in my life, and compared to crypto hackathons, is the amount of prize money. I've seen technological hackathons with 100 teams where the prize is 1,000 euros. And like you guys are right now organizing a hackathon with $130,000 in prize money, which is an insane difference. So that took me by surprise. Like, wow, this is actually very cool that we got some money where instead of last time Fyodor and I won 25 euros, and another one we won 10. So, so that couldn't even pay the train ticket to where we were at that point. So yeah, first of all, happiness, and then after talking with you guys some more, you said, oh yeah, you can really like fill in a proposal and work the idea out a bit more, and you can apply for a grant. And we were like, why not? That sounds very interesting. So we started on that, and it was a good process. Mainly you were there all the time. You were there to support us. You were not like we need to be scared. You are the one that will judge us. No, you were really there to support everything, to think with us. When we had a question about what was possible, you put us in contact with engineers at the Oasis, really enabling us to work out the idea further and working out our grant proposal further. So yeah.
I mean, first, happy to hear, but of course you didn't have to. So how does one decide from, I'm still a student, I have some other obligations, I work actually in a startup, but I'm actually ready to tackle this and turn this into a proper dApp, at some point also turn this into a company, build a community around it. It's still a big decision. So how did you take this?
I think me and Philip are both not really scared of challenges. We really face them head on always. We really accept things like that. So yeah, it's just who we are. It always has been like that, I think. For me, it was an extra challenge even because new to me, learning all this new stuff, and I like learning new stuff. So for me, that was the main motivation.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that if you get an opportunity to work on anything you want to work on, and you also get the support and environment that will help you get it done and help with growing it as a project, then I think you should always grab that opportunity and build stuff. Yeah.
Happy to hear. I mean, we have lots of hackers and hackathon participants and winners in your shoes. And for them, this decision is the same. Like, do I really want to turn this into a dApp? So I'm happy to hear that you guys had a nice experience with this, that it was rather uncomplicated, and now you can actually continue to expand on this. So, what does the future hold for BoT? I mean, you explained the product rather well. How is it going to look like after the grant finishes? I mean, every grant at Oasis is separated into milestones. Yours is too. So, what will you deliver at the end of the grant?
So at the end of the grant, we're going to deliver another a bit a way more fleshed out proof of concept, because the first thing it was held together by duct tape in some place. You know, if you do one thing wrong, it could completely break. So the point is to first of all deploy the smart contracts, really work that system out, because yeah, once that works, that it scales infinitely. And then also have a proof of concept front end. Why do I see proof of concept? Mainly because it will look well, it in my opinion it already looks great, but it will look basic, but it will have most of the functionality. And then after that, when we can reach further milestones, we can spend more time on actually thinking about creative graphics and stuff like that. And the other milestone is to deploy some sensors ourselves, just to prove that everything works, prove that everything is nice. Yeah, that's mainly the milestones.
At that point, will it be possible to anyone with an IoT sensor at home participate in this network?
Should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the smart contracts are up, they are up, and I don't think there are big changes that need to happen before. No, I think once the smart contracts work, that's it. They work.
So, what's currently missing for them to work? I see we always have quite a bit of discussion in our Telegram group with our engineers. How's it going these days?
Yeah, well, mostly it's the configuration of hardhead, you know, because in crypto you just have a lot of developing and evolving technologies all the time, and often you have new versions of tools that you work with, and sometimes those tools have conflicts. Um, and yeah, so when I was building the contracts, I was I first built them for Ethereum, and then I moved the parts to Oasis that had to be on Oasis, right? And there were some conflicts in the tools, basically, but luckily the engineers are very responsive, and yeah, I get answers, and we are making progress. Yeah.
When can the ecosystem expect to try out BoT?
I would say within, let's say, 1 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, we really
Depends
hope
on,
to get it out. We know that there were some setbacks, but yeah, mainly because of the things we just spoke about. But we really hope to get it out, because we're really excited to see. It would be nice if people actually, obviously, it would be nice if they started putting on their sensors. So yeah.
I mean, we will definitely be encouraging our community to try it out. I assume quite a few do have a Raspberry Pi at home. But the other part of the equation is, of course, data consumers. You still need someone that will actually check this data, that will maybe even immediately pay for it. What's your approach to this? Do you expect there to be a demand?
Yeah, we definitely will have a rating for the data to rate the quality of data to prevent abuse. And also,
yeah, go ahead.
You can use statistics to rate the quality of data, so you can automate a lot of that as well. Like if the data has some obvious outliers or things like that. And the neat thing about it is that we could also put it on the blockchain as well because of the privacy. But it would, it would be better to actually not to do the calculations on the blockchain because of the gas fees. But theoretically, we could.
I mean, we kind of talked about this a couple of times, and I'm sure there will be some haters that are like, man, the data isn't on-chain, not everything is on-chain, it's not decentralized, it's not secure. You do even use the storage with IPFS, but this is actually a big thing that we have internally where we are, and it's specifically my colleague and our technical product manager, Harry, he's always, not everything should be on-chain. Like data is more like nuclear waste. Like it's really dangerous to put everything on chain because who knows how long the encryption lasts. Nothing should be there forever because you can't guarantee that it's actually going to be secure. So we actually also advocate for having multiple ways of storing data, preferably somewhere off chain with lots of defense in depth, and use the blockchain for what it actually provides, like this decentralized access management, payment rails that are already built, so it's very easy to pay for things even with like micro payments. So I just wanted to clarify that because I'm sure there will be some comments on, hey, the data isn't stored on chain, how does this even help in kind of facilitating Sapphire activity, etc. Cool. Fedor, you're already in Bangkok for DEF CON, right?
Yeah. And I'm experiencing jet lag.
Okay, you're not coming, are you, Merlin?
No, I'm quite preoccupied with a thesis now. So
okay, then good luck. I'm
thank you.
coming next week, Saturday. I hope there won't be too much jet lag because we have lots of events planned. Anyone can check it on our socials, but I'll of course share it also with you, Fedor. You guys came to one of our dinners in Brussels a couple of months back, which was very nice to always catch up in person too. And you always have a chance to ask our developers. This time again, we will have quite a team in Bangkok. I think like 15 or 20 will actually come just to kind of enjoy the craziness of DEF CON in Bangkok. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if we have live questions. I think no. So we don't need to artificially extend it. It was great to kind of have you present this to the community to show everyone what's being built behind the scenes, because this is not something where we are like super public. Hey, look, hey, they are starting to work. They publish this. We generally show this when it's like fleshed out. So hopefully like 1 to 3 weeks, as you said, people can actually try it out. They will see this front end where they can actually connect devices. And hopefully we find also some, that's likely going to be my job, AI projects that actually want to utilize this data for whatever they need, but I assume just data sources for fine-tuning models, etc. To finish up, you guys have the last word. Shill BoT, shill whatever you want. I can give you a couple minutes.
Yeah, we obviously have our Twitter account where we will post updates whenever that happens. So that's one thing.
BitChain of Things. Yeah. Go follow BitChain of Things. Follow Oasis. Build things. Go to hackathons. And make the space better. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And thank you to the community, to everyone listening. To all the hackers, there is still a couple of days. And we will also be sponsoring a bounty and track at ETH Global at Bangkok during the weekend. So there's quite a bit of hacking opportunities. And hopefully, if you follow your steps and become hackathon participants and then grantees, so that they can actually flesh out products on Sapphire and utilize on-chain privacy. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.